You know, with with everybody hoping that Sonic ends up with Amy and that Sonic's the one that in the fourth movie becomes smitten with Amy and such, and vice versa. It got me thinking about Sonic's friend, his little bro, if you will, in the in the comics, in the games, in the various animated adaptations, as well as now in the movies, and that being Tails. We know that Tails, and I talked about this before. We know Tails, in the eyes of a lot of fans, is pretty much a ladies' man. It's like no matter what media he's been involved in, he always seems to win the hand of a girl. Whether it's in the Archie comics or in animation, Sonic, like Sonic X, of course, with Cosmo, Sonic Boom with Zoe, and to an extent maybe a hint at Stacy of the Stacy and Percy twins, if you will, the twins there, if you will. I think that's what her name, Percy and Stacy, right? The twin bandicoots. A hint that maybe Stacy has a crush on him and such. Anyway, anyway, Tails always seems to be the one that has the women become smitten with him, or basically is the one that always wins them over in some way. And it's kind of a vice versa situation. And like I said, even the comics have it as well. You've had, an unknown background character, female possum girl kiss him and obviously have a crush on him. You've seen Bobbery have a thing for him, even though she's supposedly older in age, but it could just be her statuesque nature. Like she could be around the same age, but she's just taller, stuff like that. And then, of course, you got the whole Fiona situation. And then, whether or not you looked at it as a potential canonization, you had him and Mina. You had him and Mina and such. And then, of course, the hints of him and Little Moon, and stuff like that. You even have fans looking at the fact that, they know that Sega is kind of hesitant with Sonic being with somebody. And again, this is where they hope that Paramount and Jeff Fowler and his team, having the leeway they do, will kind of course correct that and make both kind of smitten for each other. But, to the point that eventually you're hoping by the end of the film they end up together, or at least hint at the fact that that's going to occur before the series of films, either it goes up to 5 films, or if not, potentially to 6 films, occurs, hopefully before all 6 come to be, that they hope in between that time frame they end up together. But, again, there are even fans that are hoping Tails, could end up with Amy, or want Tails to end up with Amy, because, again, as I was saying, basically they look at Sega being very hesitant to let Sonic have a love life, even in something that's adapted, from the game, or loosely adapted from the game. They're hesitant to let that happen, so the next best choice is, someone like Tails, maybe someone like Knuckles, but mostly Tails. And a lot of people also look at the fact that, well, if you think about it, depending on what media you watch, him and Amy are close in age, probably more so than, her and Sonic. And again, that's an opinion, people have, to no end. That's an opinion they have to no end. And there's a lot of comics, fan fiction stories, and such, and animations, if you will, that kind of lean in that direction of wanting to see Tails and Amy together. Just like they want to see Tails and Little Moon, Tails and Fiona, Tails and Zoe, Tails and a revived Cosmo, and so on. Tails and Bobbery. Heck, I even did an audio video, if on YouTube here, and basically I talked about the fact that fans want to see Tails and Rouge, or because of the fact that this is something that has been, I guess, sparked and everything throughout the recent years and such. I think because of the little fight in the Sonic X loose adaptation of the Sonic Battle around season 2, I believe, of Sonic X, and then of course I think that got speared on by a couple of I guess you could say, moments where they were working together in the games, and then of course you got Sonic Boom and such, and well, not Sonic Boom, well, Sonic Prime, I should say, and such, and the various variants of them kind of being close together, or kind of like friendly and such. But yeah, fans even want that. And again, there's various comics, there's various video animations, SFM animations, NFSW animations, believe it or not, NFSW stories and such, where fans want to see tales of these different kind of women. In fact, some people even dedicate very adult NFSW stories as a two tales basically having his own harem full of girls, or they do a chapter, they do a series of stories in chapters, where each chapter in this NFSW environment, Tails is of age, he's 18 if not older, and he ends up basically with all these different other girls that you could think of from the Sonic franchise, and they're always like one shots, or they'll always have a narrative, stuff like that, and again, it's mainly because a lot of fans always looked at him as being a ladies' man, because as I mentioned, you look at all these different interpretations of Sonic throughout the year, anime, animation, CGI animation, comics and such, and it always seems that once in a while, if not more so, Tails would always seem to be put in that ballpark as being a ladies' man. I mean, there's even people that want him and Sticks together. Heck, there are those that put him and Vanilla together. Yeah. And there are some that even age up Cream to about maybe a year or two younger than him that want them together. And it's just really one of those situations to where you're like, okay, we get it, but why? There's nothing officially out there from Sega or through any of the loose adaptations that would hint at any of these ships beyond Zoe and Cosmo and Stacy and all that, where where basically it's hinted at through with Sega's approval, that there might be something there for Tails to look into, and that's true. But again, these are all fans' interpretations. These are all fans' point of view, their mindsets, if you will. And probably the biggest one, and you've been seeing the images go through the course of this video as I'm talking about this, is the one you're visually seeing here, if you're watching on YouTube, and that is of Tails and Nicole. That is a big one, and that probably has more support, more fanfare than I think anybody could really expect. And why? I think mainly it's because of the fact that just like Tails is looked at as a little bro in the BFF of Sonic in Satam and in the Archie Sonic comics, Nicole, through Satam and her evolution in the Archie Sonic comics pre and post reboot, is looked at as the little sister BFF of Sally, even though in the post reboot, it's indicated, it's kind of indicated and hinted at, and even by Ian Flynn's own admission, indicated that there might be something more between Nicole and Sally, if you catch my drift. But again, I think honestly that's why some fans look at Tails and Nicole as being a perfect item, because they both, honestly, as one person highlights it or subtitles it in a folder on a DeviantArt that they created, basically they're saying that both deserve love. And what better way to get that love than with each other? Being understanding of each other and everything. And also, again, like I said, I believe, because they're both looked at as like the young siblings, not in blood, but in theory, but in closeness, if you will, the little sibs of two of the main characters that are in love with each other themselves, and that being Sonic and Sally. And look, I have nothing against, fans wanting to come up with their own, interpretations of wanting, certain pairings together and all that. I really don't. When you look at, for example, Tangle and Whisper, in the IDW books, or the ID books as they call them, ID comics, IDW comics, when you look at Tangle and Whisper there, pretty much a lot of people know that all Sega has to do is give their approval, and we're going to get an issue eventually, where basically these two are going to be an item. End of story. And there's a lot of stories out there, NFSW stories, comics, animation, stuff like that, to where it shows them ending up together. It does. And sometimes there's even, images and all that, to where, because of the fact that they do end up together, that they end up developing the power to fuse with each other and become what's known as Wisp Angle, which is basically a fusion of both of them, with Whisper's face and head and all that, and Tangle's tail and all that. Blending of the color. And it's all because they see that all that has to be done is, Sega giving that approval, and boom, they're officially an item, and then, all their stories and everything can be justified, all the images can be justified, and such like that. But there's nothing official yet, because again, Sega is very hesitant to let romance of any kind be in there, except for a few, instances here and there. And speaking of Tangle and Whisper, there are stories that pair Tangle up with Tails as an item, and Tails with Whisper as an item, or even Tails with Lanolin, or Tails with Jewel. These females from IDW, they pair him up with them because, again, it's like, they look at how their personalities are, how they are represented, and represented and all that, and how Tails is, and it's like, hey, that's a perfect match. Let's see what happens. Let's explore the opportunities. And they go, and they end up going with that. They do. The point I'm getting at is, fans are going to have, their opinions on who they want with who. And when it comes to Tails, one of the more obvious popular ships they want to see, that, again, we've never gotten any real hint about it. When it was under the Archie comic banner, even in post-reboot, one of the pairings they want to see is him and Nicole. And it's the same reason why fans are hoping, that even though there have been little moments, sporadic moments, throughout the franchise, we've never had anything officially concrete and all that, I should say, in any other media. Outside of the games, outside of the games and all that, that would say, hey, Sonic and Amy are going to be an item now. I think the closest we've ever gotten was, during the final season of Sonic X, in the final episodes. But again, even that didn't concretely say, hey, these two are an item. It just hinted that, hey, maybe something more is going to happen later on, beyond season 3 and all that. Especially when Sonic was carrying Amy out of that bubble and everything that she dove into to save him. So, and then you had the reaction of all the characters from that, basically, being happy that not only were they alive, but kind of being happy, like, okay, finally, you two finally, became an item. But it wasn't indicated. It wasn't really officiatedly, easy for me to say, officiatedly consummated, if you know what I mean. So, even though it strongly hinted at them being an item afterwards, there was nothing really officially concrete, consummated, or anything like that after the anime was done by the creators, by the writers, the original Japanese writers, or the original dub writers, translated writers, and all that. There was no, indication officially that that's what happened. It just gave off that vibe. You know what I'm saying? And again, that's something that could happen, potentially with, Paramount. Paramount could be like, hey, Paramount, Jeff Fowler and his crew could be like, hey, we want this to happen, but Sega might be like, okay, that's not a problem, but here's the catch. You could do something that will hint at them being probably more than friends, but don't go any further than that. And if that's what happens, that's what happens. But again, fans will interpret that moment when it occurs, just like they did with that moment towards the end of Season 3 of Sonic X. Like, yes, finally, they're an item. Cool. Even though nothing was officially consummated, concreted, if you will, of that being the case. And, we'll have to see if that, we'll have to see if maybe Jeff Fowler and all of them can go beyond that and break that mold. But again, that's the fans' interpretation that what they saw in Sonic X in that moment. Boom, they're an item now. They're an item, even though nothing was officially made. And the same goes for here. Yeah, you had friendly banter and all that between them, but nothing more. Nothing more in the Archie comics pre and post reboot. You had friendly banter between them, but nothing more than that. But again, in the fans' eyes, it's like, why didn't Sega and Archie go in that direction? It's like, okay, if we can't have Sonic and Sally, and you're hinting at Sally and Nicole being an item, but you haven't really concretely, officially confirmed that, why not tease something with, between Tails and Nicole? Kind of work that out somehow, because, hey, both are looked at as little siblings to, Sonic and Sally and all that, as well as BFFs. Why not go that direction if you're not going to give us, the main course? And I think that's why fans have gone out of the way to make these stories between Nicole and Tails getting together, regular, clean sort of SFW stories, between them, as well as the beyond NFSW stories, as well as animations, little comics and pictures and all that. I think that's why you see this, because it's like, well, to them it's like, well, if you're not going to give us, if you didn't want to give us Sonic and Sally, even in post reboot, you could have at least maybe given us something, or at least hinted at something beyond, beyond maybe a friendship between the two little sibs, because again, that's how Nicole in pre-reboot and somewhat in post-reboot, in the eyes of some, was looked at, to Sally, like she was like a little sister, even though, as I mentioned, Ian Flynn had basically said that, yeah, there was something more between them, and they kind of threw little moments and hints here and there during the Spark of Life miniseries in Sonic Universe. But whatever the case is, long story short, this is a pairing, this is a ship that fans, I think, obviously wanted to see, probably more so than people want to admit. And I think it's mainly because of the fact that both have kind of, not, been very, well, one has not been very lucky when it comes to love and everything, even though he's pretty much written, even though Sega and all that, and even the people that loosely adapt him into these other medias, have written him in such a way. Tails is written somewhat as like a ladies' man, even if unintentionally. And Nicole, but he's a ladies' man that, in some cases, finds love, but then that love, becomes broken. It's like it doesn't last. The Zoe one obviously lasted in Sonic Boom, but again, that was just one time. That was just one thing, and we didn't really see Zoe that much in the show, except for when they became an item, and then a few times afterwards. But we didn't see her that much. But again, when it comes to like characters like Fiona and Cosmo, it's like the love that was there just goes up in smoke. You know what I'm saying? And for the latter, for a good reason, for a good cause. The other because basically, she just didn't truly accept or understand that, look, here's a character that likes you despite your past, and he's willing to accept you despite your past, But, what are you going to do? And then you got the whole Bobbery kind of thing, and it's like that got questionable. But again, I think it's more along the lines that, I think it's been cleared up somewhat that she is around the same age, but, she's just more statutorily taller than him. Who knows? But the point I'm getting at is Tails is kind of in that category where the love has not, finding love has not really been easy for him. And Nicole wanting to find love and acceptance as being beyond just an AI and a portable computer and such, becoming more Mobian human, if you will. I think fans look at that, they look at Tails and like, perfect match. It's like, this is a perfect match. This is a perfect scenario. Why didn't they go in this direction and make it happen, And again, I think it's mainly because of the fact that, Ian Flynn I'm sure Ian Flynn has heard about this a lot. Ian didn't want to, risk the chance of romance anymore, except for certain characters. The only romance he kept in the comic after the in the post reboot was Antoine and Bunny. Because that was pretty much established in pre-reboot that they were married, so you can't just basically destroy that. You can't destroy that and just start from scratch with them. Because fans became so used to that, became accustomed to that, you have to keep it in there. And that's what he did. Everything else is more like, yeah, we can hint at something, but we're not going to fully come out and say it because we don't want to risk, the shippers, getting mad and saying, oh, well, Sally should be with Sonic, Nicole should be with Tails, or, Sally should be, or Sonic should be with Amy, Sally should be with Tails, and, they don't want to risk that. He didn't want to risk that, so he's like, screw it, I'm just going to do one, and I'm just going to hint, and that's all he did. It's all he did, as much as we may not like to hear that. So, in the end, ladies and gentlemen, I have no issue whatsoever with fans wanting to see wanting to go, even, after, the comic has been long gone. It's going to be like 10 years in 2 years, I think, 10 years in 2027, since the comic officially came to an end, with Archie. I don't blame fans for wanting to, beyond it, wanting to keep, the spirit of that comic alive and do things, romantically with characters that they felt maybe should have been at least tested in some capacity. And I won't be surprised if maybe Archie Sonic Online and Archie Sonic Restored, under the Archie Sonic Online banner, ASO and ASR, I'm not going to be surprised if either one of them, if not both, do a one-shot, pre-reboot and post-reboot story, maybe where it hints at Tails and Nicole kind of liking each other beyond friends. But we'll have to see if they do that. But again, this is the reason I bring this up. It's because of the fact that, this is something that fans, like seeing. They're very intrigued in. And potentially, it's their way of saying it's something that they will, that they feel and believe should have been at least teased in the post-reboot, if not the pre-reboot, between the two. Mostly post-reboot, because of that, because of the understanding of, each other. Like, one understands love, but never, really succeeded, and the other wants love because they want to be accepted, and, and that's pretty much, I guess, how they view it. And again, I think they also view it because both are looked at as the BFFs and the little sibs of both Sonic and Sally, individually. But let me know what your thoughts are. I know this may have not made sense to a lot of people, but let me know what your thoughts are. What your thoughts are. Sorry, I woke up from a nap just a little bit ago. But let me know what your thoughts are and everything in the comments below. Like the video, ring the bell for notification. Also, comment in the live chat where SuperChats will be open if you want to do that. Also, guys, you can check me out at my Teespring store. Merchandise there get merchandise there that you can't get anywhere else. Link will be in the description. Also, check out the links in the description as well to find my content elsewhere. Find my podcast at all your favorite podcast outlets for video and audio podcasts like Spotify, iTunes, Pandora, iHeartRadio, Radio Public, Overcast, you name it. If it has a podcast, you're probably more than likely to find mine there as well. Also, check me out at rumble.com at BW Roses. Sorry about that, but like I said, wherever there's a podcast, you can find me at on those. You can find me there along with other podcasters. Also, check me out at rumble.com at BW Roses, odyssey.com at BW Roses, VENMO.com at BW Roses, inkbunny.net at BW Roses, deviantart.com at BVW1979. As well as check me out at twitter.com at BW Roses and Blue Sky BW Roses as well. And I will try to get something like a True Social up down the line, but we'll see. But guys, that's basically where you can find me across the internet. You'll also probably get a podcast version of this at the podcast, on my podcast, if you will. Like I said, where you can find podcasts anywhere. You'll get an audio podcast of this to listen wherever you go without having to watch the video and all that as well. But again, guys, give me your thoughts. Ring the bell for notifications. Like the video. But give me your thoughts. And until then, I will talk to you all later. I'm out, and I do apologize if I was a little ramblish. I did wake up from a nap.